Many people become bored in their marriages, particularly after 10 or 20 years, which is understandable. Yet, for some reason, people are willing to risk their marriages for fleeting pleasure, only to face darkness afterward. My wife was willing to risk our marriage, and unpleasant consequences awaited her as a result. After 20 years of marriage, my 39-year-old attractive wife, the mother of our 2 daughters whom I adore, told me she had a date planned with a colleague from work the next evening. Helen and I married as teenagers after a brief courtship of less than a year, prompted by her unexpected pregnancy with our first daughter. Our love was strong, leading us to wed, and 7 months later, we welcomed Christy into our lives. Our marriage has been immensely rewarding, filled with love and the delight of raising 2 amazing children who hold their parents in high regard. I took the plunge into entrepreneurship, founding a thriving landscaping company that grew into a multi-million-dollar business, allowing us to lead a life full of happiness and fulfillment. I never imagined I would hear such words from my wife. Sitting on the couch, a glass of scotch in hand, her revelation hit me like a freight train. She explained how, since our daughters left for university, she has been battling depression and a sense of unhappiness. In my perception, our marriage was flawless, making this news particularly devastating. Helen disclosed that Tommy from accounting had become a close confidant, supporting her through her struggles with depression, which came as a surprise to me. It struck me as odd because she hadn't mentioned feeling depressed or troubled at all. The idea of my wife turning to another man for emotional support was painful, but learning that she wanted to be romantically involved with him was devastating. As it turns out, Tommy Boy is married with 3 young daughters and presents himself as a counselor, though in reality, he preys on unsuspecting victims. Married women, especially those in vulnerable states, are easy targets for him as he exploits their vulnerabilities without commitment. John, I can't keep this from you, and I hope you can understand, but I need to do this for myself. It may seem selfish, but please give me this one night to see how it goes. I was filled with rage, wanting to explode, yet deep down, I knew my wife well enough to anticipate this. Once she made up her mind, there was no turning back. After she finished speaking, I remained motionless, gazing at her while she nervously occupied the love seat across from me. The room filled with oppressive silence as I refrained from uttering a word. Instead, I calmly finished my scotch, stood up, and headed towards the door. John, don't ignore me. Stop sulking and acting like a child. This is happening, and I had to inform you before proceeding. I would never betray you, and I want you to be fully aware of everything. We've always been truthful with each other, and I won't start lying to you now, darling. I stood there, staring at her, my expression likely betraying my inner turmoil. I watched as she pulled her knees to her chest and curled up into a ball. Without a word, I ascended to our bedroom, packed 2 days' worth of clothing and toiletries, then once again, without a word, walked past Helen and out to the garage. She trailed behind, crying out as I passed her. Please, John, don't leave. Everything will be fine. It's just one outing, nothing more, and it will be over soon. Just one evening, surely you can grant me that after 20 years. As I drove away, I shook my head in disbelief at what she had said. That Thursday evening, I checked into the Ritz-Carlton, yes, the Ritz-Carlton at $400 a night, but I didn't care. If I was going to endure pain, I was determined to at least enjoy my accommodations. The calls and texts flooded in immediately, but after sending one response, I blocked her number, informing her I wouldn't communicate until I returned home on Saturday. Following her betrayal, no doubt those words stung. The next day at work, I instructed my secretary to block any calls from my wife and informed security to deny her entry. My plan was already in motion, and I was resolute in not letting anything disrupt it. I'm John Casey, a man of action. At work and among friends, I'm known as the one in charge, the problem solver people rely on. But at home, I've been the laid-back, easygoing husband, trying to please and distance myself from my assertive persona. It's been my strategy for the past 20 years, but it seems I underestimated its impact. Looking back, I realize I should have been firmer and more composed in my domestic life. I loved my wife and treated her like royalty. But now, I see the consequences. I once chuckled at a quote that said, "Treat her like a queen and she will treat you like a servant." Now, it's not funny, it's my reality. But I refuse to let it stay that way. On Friday morning, I reached out to my brother, a detective in Miami, for assistance. After explaining my needs, he connected me with one of his associates, Peter Cliff, a private investigator. "Peter, it's Sergeant Davis. How are you? Listen, my brother needs your help tonight. I'm calling in a favor. Can you have one of your men tail his wife?" "Yes, tonight. We need to identify the person she's meeting and gather as much intel as possible by Saturday morning. Run his license plates, obtain his home address and phone number, and text them to me tonight. We'll also need photos of them together, but that can wait until tomorrow. Right now, we're focused on gathering information about the man. Davis, this is short notice, but I owe you. I'll get it done. So, you want the guy's phone and address tonight, and the rest of the photos and intel tomorrow? What do you have for me to start with?" "Yes, that's the plan for now. I'll send you the wife's address, her departure time, and her date's first name. His name is Tommy, and he works with her at Broker Unlimited. It shouldn't be difficult to identify him. The wife returns home at 5 p.m., but we're unsure of the start time of her date, so you'll need a man stationed outside the house before 5 p.m. to follow her when he arrives. Got it? Send over the wife's address, and I'll handle the rest for you, my friend." John listened intently to the conversation, his brother's voice fading as the call ended. There was a smile on his lips, his plan was completely in line with reality. He was ready to surprise his unsuspecting cheating wife. Time was running out, and John's plan required immediate action. While the couple were having dinner, he intended to visit Tommy's wife to reveal the truth about the affair and their current whereabouts. Then, he called Joe, his longtime friend, to get contact information about the service with the girls. Joe, who was suffering from a difficult divorce, chose the easy way to meet his needs. Now, John understood this choice: no cheating, just simple deals that are probably cheaper than dealing with a cheating spouse. The conversation with Joe went smoothly, and he arranged a date night with a young, attractive blonde. John offered an additional $11,000 tip due to unique circumstances, explaining his recent breakup and desire to meet a girl. He stressed the need to be careful, instructing the escort to maintain the appearance of a sincere meeting in the event of his wife's unexpected arrival without disclosing her professional status. John anticipated his wife's arrival, fully aware she would catch them in bed together if she sought a rendezvous with another man. He was prepared to reciprocate with an added touch of panache. They had arranged to convene at his hotel for drinks to acquaint themselves before indulging in the evening's activities, thus setting his plan in motion. As a real estate professional, Helen hosted open houses every Saturday, rarely returning home before 6 p.m. Saturdays were among her busiest days, and this one proved to be no exception. Reflecting on Thursday evening when Helen asserted her independence following his departure, she sat on the couch stewing over their exchange, venting her frustration to an empty room. "I can't believe he behaved so immaturely, storming out without a word. What a jerk." Helen attempted to reach John through calls and texts, growing increasingly aggravated by his lack of response, until a particular text arrived. The mention of betrayal made her recoil, prompting her to reassess her plans. Initially viewing the date as harmless fun rather than infidelity, she pushed aside thoughts of betrayal, convincing herself, it's just one night of enjoyment. John will have to come to terms with it, and will return to normal. He's overreacting. But he'll forgive me, and I'll make it up to him tomorrow night. He won't be able to resist, and I know precisely how to help him move past this on Friday evening. Upon returning to an empty house, she pondered her plans once more. Should she stick with her arrangement to go out with Tommy, or opt to cancel and invite John to return? Anticipating an enjoyable evening ahead, she resolved to follow through with her original intentions. She indulged in a relaxing bath, meticulously shaved her legs, applied her most enticing lotion, and settled at her makeup table, transforming her lovely visage into that of a seductive woman. Gazing at the reflection of the alluring figure in the mirror, she grinned with satisfaction as she completed styling her long locks. After that, she took off the labels from the charming short dress and hung it on the mirror. Then, she put on stockings she had never worn for John and attached them to a new garter belt she had bought at Nordstrom earlier that day. As she put on her stockings and gently touched them, she was flooded with memories of those times when John asked her to dress provocatively. She was overcome with guilt when she remembered Valentine's Day, when John brought home a set of underwear from Victoria's Secret, and her reaction. She clearly remembered the hurt in his eyes when she asked him if he thought she was promiscuous and if she refused to wear such clothes. For more than a minute, she stood motionless, thinking about the stockings and garter she had bought, which she was now going to put on for another man. It made her think, and for the first time, she thought about canceling a date and breaking up a relationship. She couldn't get the echo of John's accusations of betrayal out of her head. However, she quickly put aside the guilt of giving something to her companion that she had never given to John. She put on a silk dress, buttoned it up, and decided not to wear a bra. Pleased with the result, standing in front of a full-length mirror, she admired her long legs and black nylon stockings and high-heeled shoes. "Oh my God, I look pretty cocky, but it's so exciting. I can't wait to see Tommy's reaction, although I have to make it clear that tonight is just dinner and dancing, nothing more." She tried to convince herself that this was just a date and nothing more, but deep down, she knew that she needed to restrain her desires. For the past month, she had been eagerly anticipating her date with Tommy, her mind consumed by excitement. Despite her husband's immature behavior, she was determined to enjoy herself. Helen believed John would acquiesce, as he always did, valuing his accommodating nature. She cherished him for it. Just as she prepared for the evening, John's final call arrived. He extended one last opportunity, hoping to halt the impending disaster and salvage their marriage. Though swallowing his pride was difficult, his love for Helen remained profound. Willing to sacrifice dignity to win her back, he pleaded with her to reconsider, willing to endure humiliation to prevent her from going on the date. Anxious and guilty, Helen answered John's call, aware of her less than honorable intentions. Despite feeling conflicted, she longed for his understanding and acceptance. "John, thank you for calling. I miss and love you dearly. Where are you coming home, darling?" "Helen, I love you too, which is why I reached out. My heart aches at the thought of your plans. I beg you, please don't go on this date. Stay with me, and I'll do anything to make you happy. I'll be the man you need. If I'm falling short, tell me, and I'll fix it. I just want to be with you. Can you please cancel this date and save our marriage, please?" She listened as his voice trembled, feeling a pang of sympathy for John. It came across as feeble and pitiful, her sturdy, dependable man reduced to tears and pleading, granting her an unexpected sense of control. She understood his love for her, confident that John would forgive her once he grasped her emotions. Their shared history, their children, and his affection were formidable bonds, ensuring they would remain together indefinitely. "Oh, John, I adore you beyond measure and eagerly anticipate our future together tonight. However, I must pursue this independently of our love. It's a fleeting indulgence for me, unrelated to our relationship. Please comprehend and allow me this one instance, and I vow to be yours eternally. I know you're in pain, and I'm sorry for that, but you're blowing this out of proportion. It's simply dinner and drinks with a friend, nothing more. Nothing will occur, and I'll return home tonight devoted to you forever. You'll understand once it's over. Tomorrow, we'll discuss it, and you can reclaim me as your wife. I love you, John, but I must leave, she uttered, tears welling in her eyes. She longed to hang up but heard her husband's plea before disconnecting the call. Carefully dabbing her eyes to avoid smudging her makeup, she regarded herself in the mirror, addressing her reflection. He probably thinks I'm being unreasonable, but John, I'm sorry. I must do this for myself. Please don't be angry. Adjusting her hair, touching up her lipstick, spritzing perfume, she attempted to push John from her thoughts. In his hotel room, John listened to the call end and stared at his phone, wiping his eyes as anger welled up inside him once more. He had just pleaded with his wife not to go on the date, but she insisted it was happening and that he should understand and be supportive. Tomorrow, overwhelmed with grief, he realized he had lost the woman he had loved and been with for the past 2 decades. Across the street from their home, Peter the PI sat in his white van just before 5 p.m., observing Helen's arrival in the garage. An hour later, he noted another car pulling into the driveway. After taking down the license plate and making some calls, Peter swiftly relayed the requested information to Davis and John. The home phone number and address were sent to both their phones even before the couple departed for their date. As Tommy entered the house, he noticed the sadness in Helen's eyes and recognized her moment of insecurity and guilt. Familiar with such situations, he knew he had to act swiftly and knew just what to say. "Helen, what's troubling you? You seem so upset," Tommy said. "Maybe we shouldn't go through with this. I've been thinking about John and how he asked me not to go out with you. I feel so guilty, like I've already betrayed him," she confessed, a tear streaming down her face. Tommy hurried to the sofa, embracing Helen, drawing on his expertise to address her concerns. It took roughly an hour, but being adept with women and their emotions, he intended to sway her decision. "Everything's fine, Helen. We don't have to go through with this, and I completely understand your reservations. You've never felt comfortable going out alone, even for a simple dinner or movie. He just doesn't grasp that we're just friends. Men like him want to shield their wives from any perceived threats, but if he understood how much I value our friendship, I'm sure he wouldn't object. Honestly, I'm disappointed we can't spend tonight together, but I get it. I was really looking forward to your company and trying out that new restaurant. But hey, here's an idea. Why don't we have a nice dinner together, and then I'll take you home? Surely he wouldn't mind you having dinner with a friend." His casual demeanor persuaded Helen that dinner would be acceptable, especially since she was already dressed and secretly desired it. At 7 p.m., Peter observed as the couple drove off towards a downtown restaurant, promptly informing Davis and John of their whereabouts. He kept them updated throughout the evening. Easily capturing photos over the next 4 hours, Peter snapped pictures of them dining, holding hands, entering a dance club, dancing intimately, kissing, and behaving as if deeply in love. He also recorded videos of them slow dancing, with Tommy touching her inappropriately on the dance floor. Peter sent all the materials before sunrise the next morning. At exactly 8 p.m., John dialed Brian, Helen's father, with whom he had been close friends and golf partners for years, to deliver distressing news. "Hello, Brian, it's John." "Hi, John. Are we still set for golf on Sunday?" "I'm not certain, but I have unfortunate news. Currently, your daughter is out with a colleague on a date. I believed everything was fine between us, but she expressed a need for more and decided to see this man, you know. I care deeply for you and Maggie, but I cannot tolerate this behavior. I view our marriage as over. She has violated our marital vows, and I cannot forgive her betrayal. I simply wanted you to understand the circumstances behind what will unfold. I regret it has to end like this, John." "Are you saying she's going out with someone else? Are you sure?" "That doesn't sound like my daughter, Brian." I have a private investigator observing them at dinner right now. She is indeed with him as we speak. She is betraying me, our marriage, and our children at this moment. I'm sorry this is hard for me, but I respect you and felt you should know the truth. John, I'm deeply sorry. Please don't do anything rash. I believe she loves you, and perhaps you two can resolve this. I'm sorry, Brian, but I've reached my limit. I'll call you soon. Let's reschedule for next Sunday. It seems this weekend is shaping up to be quite dreadful. John drove to Tommy's house after obtaining the cheater's address from the private investigator. Upon meeting Stella, Tommy's wife, he noticed her confusion when he inquired if she was Mrs. Brooks. The 30-something mother of three greeted him at the door, clad in tight jeans and a lace top that accentuated her figure. John made a concerted effort to maintain eye contact to avoid any awkwardness. "Are you Miss Brooks, Tommy's wife?" he asked. "Yes, is everything all right with him?" she responded. "He's in good hands, trust me. He works with my wife. May I come in for a moment?" Once inside, John broke the news to Stella. "Mrs. Brooks, I regret to inform you that at this very moment, your husband Tommy and my soon-to-be ex-wife are on a date. My wife informed me just yesterday that she felt the need to explore new horizons, and your husband, in his kindness, became the recipient of her attention. Are you certain you've identified the correct individual?" "My Tommy is currently engaged in his Friday night card game," Mrs. Brooks countered. "I wouldn't be here if I wasn't certain. My private investigator is currently observing them. I'll provide you with photos and video evidence, but I believed you needed to be informed." It pained me to leave her in tears, knowing that their affair likely ruined their marriage, but that's the choice Tommy boy made. Saturday morning, as John received his breakfast, he settled down to pour a cup of the hotel's distinctive coffee. The aroma was delightful, and he found solace as he reclined in his plush bed. However, his sense of comfort and contentment quickly turned to disgust and resentment as he opened the photographs sent by the private investigator on his phone. The only positive aspect was that she had returned home by 1 a.m., and there was no activity that evening. John's anger intensified as he observed his wife's betrayal, tears welling up in his eyes. Watching the footage of them kissing with her lover's hand on her backside shattered any hope of reconciliation in his mind. He also noted her wearing stockings for her paramour, recalling her reaction when he had given her the same gift a few months earlier. Her betrayal and lack of respect were unbearable for him. He was overwhelmed with humiliation and a sense of inadequacy, which eventually transformed back into anger. Tommy persuaded Helen to extend their evening after dinner, inviting her to join him at his favorite dance club. It later turned out that this decision had a detrimental effect on their marriage, and although she had doubts before agreeing, she gave in to the desire to get this one-time experience. John was gripped by a deep sadness such as he had never felt before, watching the video for the third time. He couldn't suppress his pain when he saw Tommy's inappropriate behavior, which made him exclaim to no one in particular. Thinking about all this, he came to the conclusion that although his wife may not have cheated on him physically, her actions were still unacceptable, disrespectful, and represented a deep betrayal of their marriage. Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m., he rendezvoused with Candy at the hotel, and for the next 2 hours, they acquainted themselves with each other. John clearly communicated his intentions, finding Candy to be the ideal accomplice for his scheme. By a little after 4 p.m., they returned to his residence, and by 5 p.m., they were nestled in his bed before retiring for the night. John strategically positioned the note he had composed for Helen. It conveyed, "Helen, by breaking our marital vows and contract. Last night, you shattered not only our union but also my heart. Henceforth, I no longer regard us as married. Legally bound, yes, but our contract is null, granting us both freedom to pursue our desires. I'll be taking the master bedroom as this is my abode. You're welcome in any other room but not in my bed. Your belongings are in the guest rooms. Please respect my personal space. You've achieved your freedom, and now I reclaim mine. I trust you find solace in your choices and newfound life. With regards, your former husband, John. Removing his wedding band, he positioned it atop the letter on the entrance door. Raising it to eye level, he pierced the ring's center with one of his collector knives, driving it through the letter and into the wooden door. This display would greet Helen upon her return that evening, around 6 to 10 p.m. Upon returning from work, Helen noticed the knife lodged in the door, sparking immediate concern. Such a sight would undoubtedly unsettle any ordinary person. She cautiously approached the door, scanning her surroundings for any other signs of disturbance. As she drew nearer, she spotted a note addressed to her, accompanied by John's wedding ring. Her heart raced, tears streaming down her face as she absorbed the contents of the letter. Clutching the ring and note tightly, she hurried into the house, desperately searching for John to express her desire for him not to leave her. Amidst sobs, she called out his name into the darkness of the hallway. The house was silent, save for a few noises emanating from the bedroom. Ascending the stairs, she paused to listen at the door. Upon opening it, she discovered her husband in bed with another woman, enjoying themselves. Helen was consumed with fury, unleashing her anger on her husband. "How dare you! You're despicable," she yelled, storming out of the house and making her way to her car. Fuming and tearful, she drove to her sister Mary's house. Once she arrived and managed to compose herself, she recounted to Mary how she had found her husband in bed with someone else and felt lost. Her sister attempted to comfort and soothe her. "That doesn't sound like John at all. I never would have imagined he'd betray you. He always seemed deeply devoted to you, showing more love and respect than anyone I know. I envied the affection he showered upon you. This doesn't add up. Did something else happen? What do you think triggered this?" Helen, with tears streaming down her face, murmured, "I'm not sure. Maybe it's because I went on a date last night. That's the only explanation I can think of." "What do you mean you went on a date? With whom?" "Just a colleague from work. It wasn't romantic, just dinner and dancing." "Sis, let me get this straight. You went out with someone else last night, had dinner and danced, while leaving your husband alone at home. Am I understanding this correctly?" "Well, yes, but you're making it sound worse than it was. Are you out of your mind? Did you honestly believe John would be okay with you going out with someone else?" I assured him that it was innocent fun, unrelated to anything intimate. "Good Lord, you're incredibly naive, and it's hard to believe we're related. Now I understand why he had someone else in his bed, and frankly, I don't blame him." Sobbing uncontrollably, she held up the note that had been on the door and handed it to Mary. "Oh, Helen, you've really messed up this time. Your actions were selfish and foolish, possibly costing you your husband and your marriage. You can stay here tonight, but tomorrow you need to face him and try to fix things. I'll reach out to him later and ask if you can talk, though I'm not optimistic. Brace yourself for the worst, sis. If I were in your shoes, my husband would have kicked me out without a second thought, and John is even more devoted than Tom." Helen spent the night alone in Mary's guest room, crying until the early hours with little sleep. Mary messaged John, urging him to call her back promptly. John, always fond of Mary and aware of her intentions, returned her call. "Hey Mary, what's going on?" "Hi John, my foolish sister is here and has explained everything that happened at your place tonight. I don't blame you at all, and I have to admit your retaliation was pretty swift." With a chuckle, John replied, "Well, you know me, Mary. I don't tolerate nonsense. I'm acquainted with Jan. Listen. I understand she made a mistake, but she's really struggling and I can't cope with her in this state. You both should have a conversation about this tomorrow. I'm not sure if you're actually going to kick her out, and I wouldn't blame you if you did. But if she hasn't gone through with this guy yet, maybe you should consider trying to resolve things. Perhaps some therapy, or perhaps we should consider some kind of treatment for Helen to address her issues. Anyway, please allow her to come back and talk tomorrow. Mary, of course she can come back. This is still her home, and I didn't evict her. However, she won't be staying with me while she's here. I'm no longer angry or upset. My anger has been replaced by a profound sense of hurt due to her betrayal. I'll let her speak, but I can't promise anything about the future right now. I feel as much hatred towards this woman as I do love. The pain is dictating my emotions at this moment. It would take a miracle for me to consider taking her back, but you already know that. You're the intelligent one in the family. God, I can't believe my sister thought you would be okay with her going out with some other guy. What an idiot. Be patient and just know she loves you. Hopefully she didn't go too far with the idiot she was with. Tell Mary to head home whenever she's ready. Goodbye. John, you're my favorite, you know. I love you. Bye. Sundays at noon, returning from the gym, I found Helen's car in the driveway and her seated at the kitchen table, attempting a smile. She said, "You know we're not headed for divorce. We can resolve this because we love each other." I remained silent, poured a cup of coffee, and took a seat opposite Helen, who anxiously rubbed her hands in her lap. After a few sips, I met her gaze and finally spoke. "That's fine by me, Helen. Divorce or not, it's irrelevant now because once you broke our marital vows, our marriage was over. I no longer see us as a couple, and you're free to date whoever you want, just like me. The only change is you won't sleep in my bed, and we won't be intimate. That ended the night you went out with your boyfriend." "He's not my boyfriend, and nothing happened, Helen. You went on a date with another man while married. You dressed provocatively, had dinner, held hands, allowed him to touch you inappropriately, kissed him, and spent time with him. That's the issue. To you, it might be insignificant, but to me, it's everything. It's what ended our marriage. So, if you want to stay married, fine. But there will be no divorce." "No, I don't want a divorce. Just give us some time, and I'll come back to your bed." "But did you have a relationship with that girl you were with?" "I will not tolerate this." I burst into laughter and exclaimed, "Well, isn't that amusing? You're the one who violated our marriage agreement, not me. You abandoned our marriage the moment you agreed to go out with your boyfriend. You set me free when you hopped into his car and left our marriage behind. I have no intention of ending things with Candy. She's youthful, attractive, and enjoyable to be with. She's also incredibly passionate, and I must admit, the best I've ever had. We explored things you never offered me, and now I realize what I've been missing. Why on earth would I give that up? You might not be aware of this yet, Helen, but last night while you were with your boyfriend, I paid a visit to his wife, Stella. Did you know they have 3 beautiful children? But I suppose that didn't cross your mind while you were with your lover." Stella shared some intriguing details about Mr. Nice Guy. "Did you know you're the 3rd woman she's caught him with in the past year, and Jessica Wilson from your office was the last married woman he cheated with, leading to her divorce? Your Tommy boy has quite a track record, but Stella mentioned she's had enough. She realized that once a cheater, always a cheater. Looks like you're in that category now too. I suppose you could have chosen a better partner to cheat on me with, but then again, I'm not one to cheat and wouldn't know. Seems like you and Tommy Boy have managed to break up 2 families with 5 children. Impressive work." She was stunned to realize that the man for whom she risked her marriage was just another libertine looking for easy intimacy. Anger at her own foolishness surged within her as she grasped the truth that Tommy had torn apart other families. Overwhelmed by fury, she unleashed her emotions, shouting at her husband. "John, he's not my boyfriend, and you need to stop saying that. I can't believe you went to her house and told her he was cheating on her. My God, it was only dinner. You're truly cruel and heartless. And what about you being with another woman in our home? It's unforgivable. It has to end. Just dinner? Have you forgotten about the dirty dancing, kissing, and touching at the club? I promised Stella copies of all the photos and videos, evidence she can use when Tommy tries to pass it off as innocent, like you did to me. I understand that in your mind. It's not cheating, but to the rest of the world, that's precisely what it is, betraying your marriage by giving yourself to someone else. When will you grasp that concept? So you think I'm cruel and heartless? I'm curious, how would you describe what you did? Loving and caring? No, I won't give up my time with Candy. And if you can't accept that, you don't have to stay here. No, John, I want you to end things with her and be with me. I won't see anyone else, I promise. You're making promises? Oh, how amusing. You pledged to be my wife forsaking all others, but that promise went out the window, didn't it, Helen? So, Helen, as I see it, if you're not happy with the situation, you're free to leave or file for divorce. Maybe you can shack up with your lover since he'll need a new place too. Frankly, you both seem well suited for each other. Or perhaps you can move in with your sister Mary. I'm sure she'd welcome you with open arms, setting a fine example for her daughters. John, are you going to end things with that woman? Don't you care about me? Don't you want us to reconcile and be together? Helen, it's too late for that now. The moment you expressed your desire for another man, you shattered me. Do I still love you? Yes, but trust is in short supply. It's hard to trust and love someone who can discard me so easily. A real man wouldn't stand for his wife being with another man, yet you made that choice. You made it clear you were going to pursue a relationship outside of our marriage, regardless of my feelings. Now that you've opened up our marriage, you'll have to contend with my desires too, and right now, I desire to be with Candy, a young woman who fulfills my needs in ways I never imagined. I suppose seeing me happy with another woman doesn't sit well with you, does it? Well, now you understand some of my pain, and you'll experience the consequences of your actions. Payback's but tough luck. As for divorce, that's your decision. We can continue living together as roommates and see how things unfold, or you can give me the green light, and I'll have divorce papers drawn up within a week. It's your call, sweetheart. It makes no difference to me. I stated firmly. She understood the gravity of my words and wisely chose not to challenge me at that moment. For the next month, I brought Candy home every weekend and shared a bed with her. We did this several times a day. Being with her helped me regain the confidence I had lost because of Helen's betrayal. Helen hated weekends and begged me to stop my meetings with Candy, but I continued to enjoy myself. Whenever Candy and I came home on Saturday nights, Helen would leave and only come back after Candy left. I've arranged with Helen to text her as soon as Candy leaves. Although I enjoyed the physical aspect of our relationship and witnessing Helen's pain, I couldn't shake the guilt that was creeping into my conscience. As the next week passed, I came to realize that my communication with Candy was purely physical. Although it was extremely satisfying, there was a lack of genuine emotional connection, and the financial costs became burdensome. After Helen returned on Sunday evening, I announced my decision to refrain from seeing Candy for the foreseeable future, expressing my intention to find another romantic partner. Helen begged me to make peace and give up other relationships, confessing her regret and confirming her desire for me to be the only person in her life. John, you've caused me enough suffering. Every week, I was forced to watch this woman enter our house and find herself next to the man I love. It's unbearable pain, and I can't see you with another woman. Please give me another chance. I may not be able to compete with someone like her, but I can offer you love and something that no one else can offer. Her remark caught me off guard. Love? Do you even comprehend its meaning, Helen? Love isn't forsaking your partner to announce you're pursuing other men. No, I doubt you truly understand what love entails, and thus you cannot give what you don't possess. But here's what I'll do. I won't entertain the idea of dating anyone until we undergo couples counseling. If we can resolve our issues, then perhaps there's a chance for us in the future. She sprang from the couch and embraced me tightly, showering kisses all over my face before finally reaching my lips. Oh, thank you, darling. I promise I'll make things right. Not so fast. I'm not ready to forgive you for your actions. I'm simply granting us one final opportunity before I end our relationship due to your infidelity. John, don't speak like that. You love me, and I'm certain we'll always be together. I'll sleep with you tonight, please, she pleaded, kissing me again. No, not yet. I still can't shake the images of you with that man from my mind, the thought of you kissing another man and allowing him to touch you, things that rightfully belong to me, continues to torment me every minute of the day. I'm filled with anger over how callously you've hurt me and discarded our marriage. You're incredibly fortunate that our children are unaware of this, or I shudder to think what they'd think of their promiscuous mother. If it's clear I'm still deeply upset by your actions, let's take things slowly and see how counseling progresses. I scheduled an appointment with Dr. Madison for that Tuesday and embarked on the challenging journey of revisiting the event, the pain, and the agony twice a week for the next 3 months. It was the familiar routine of therapy that you find in countless stories, and it was just as agonizing. I had to confront the affair all over again and endure hours of psychobabble. Life would have been much simpler if only she had remained faithful to our vows, but I suppose that was asking too much. After 3 months of bi-weekly counseling, we managed to resolve our issues. Helen recognized the extent of the pain and hurt she had caused, and she understood my reaction. She argued that my retaliation was even worse, but I clarified that she had breached our agreement the moment she accepted a date with another man, thus granting me my freedom. Eventually, she grasped the concept, although she remained discontent. The counselor, however, admonished me for seeking revenge, but I couldn't care less. I would do it again without hesitation. I reconciled with her under a post-nuptial agreement in which she forfeited everything in the event of an extramarital affair. She consented to having a GPS tracker on her phone, granting me access to her email and text messages, and pledged complete honesty without evasion. I made it clear that there would be a strict zero-tolerance policy regarding infidelity, whether emotional or physical, and that she would be promptly removed from our home. She assured me that she would never even entertain the idea of flirting with another man again and promised everlasting fidelity. Despite her assurances, I couldn't shake Stella's warning, once a cheater, always a cheater. A year later, we found ourselves back in the familiar territory of her escapade. This time, I kept a closer watch on my wife, fully aware that history could repeat itself. Together with her sister Mary, we made sure Helen stayed on the right path. Tommy's divorce came at a steep price. His wife kicked him out, kept the house, secured child support for their 3 kids, and received alimony. Now, Tommy struggled in a cramped studio apartment, barely making ends meet after paying for his unfaithfulness. Ironically, Tommy lost everything over a dinner, a few dances, some flirting, and a few kisses. What a foolish mistake. Helen was devastated to discover Tommy's history of infidelity and his involvement in Jennifer's divorce. Knowing Tommy had betrayed his family with multiple women made Helen realize how close she had come to ruining her own life and losing her family's love due to her naivety. Determined never to repeat her mistake, she vowed to show John and their children her unwavering love. True to her word, she remained faithful to him. Yet, the image of another woman beside her husband haunted her, solidifying her resolve to never let him stray again. She believed he was hers. Tommy's affair with a married woman proved to be a costly, potentially dangerous hobby, depending on the other woman's husband. Fortunately, John was not that kind of spouse. But had Tommy followed through, the consequences could have been vastly different. The irony of involuntary betrayal is that those who have been wronged never forget it and often seek justice. 2 years post-divorce, Jennifer Douglas, the deceived husband, unexpectedly encountered Tommy in the parking lot outside Helen's workplace. Later that evening, Tommy was found unconscious with severe injuries by another patron at the pub. Time would tell if Tommy had finally learned his lesson. As a wise man once said, "The scars on my heart were not left by my enemies, but by those who claimed to love me."